Hey, everybody, welcome on in. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing great out there. Dolphins getting ready for the Commanders this week. Ron Rivera taking over the defense. They fired Jack Del Rio and his leather jacket. They told him to take a hike. And, you know, it was funny. I was getting into a talk with us about Leroy today on the show, and he goes, I don't like this game. I don't feel like there's any benefit for the Miami Dolphins. And I disagree. I think that I think there actually are some beneficial things that can come out of this for Miami. On a couple of fronts. You know, one of them being this Miami Dolphins team has been, you know, really, really good at home, but I do think that they want to always clean stuff up on the road, and I understand. You know, where Leroy is coming from is the Commanders are no good. They stink. I think they've lost 5 out of 6. The only team I think they've beaten is the Fighting McCorkles. So the Commanders are in a bad way right now. Obviously, when you're firing coaches and your head coach is taking over duties, never a good sign. Never a sign that things are going in a good direction for your franchise. But I do think that for this game in particular, and the big thing that I've worried about with the Miami Dolphins has just been taking care of the football. It's kind of an obvious thing, and it's always one of those dumb things that analysts will go to. But I really, truly feel like the Miami Dolphins, we have seen the yardage be hummed up and been in a good place. And this is kind of excluding the Jets game because the Jets suck and they overwhelmed them and just bullied them in the second half. And good, they should have. But I think we've seen, like, you know, go back to the Raiders game, a game they probably should have put up a lot more points. I do think that this offense running smoothly, bringing it on the road, maybe the weather won't be pristine going into this game, a little bit colder. You know, Tua's going to have his little headquarters there in the University of Maryland with baby bro. And so that'll be a cool thing for him. But I would like to see operations look pretty smooth. I'd love to see him take care of the football, whether that means not throwing interceptions or not fumbling. I think that both of those things are hugely important for this quarterback, this offense. And that's certainly been, you know, I think this is one of the things where I'm watching some of the national pundits this week, and they're already rats off a ship on Tua. You can already tell that's the narrative everybody's building around for him, even though he remains among the league leaders in a lot of things. You know, people point to those interceptions, and they matter more for him than they do anybody else, or he's penalized for having them more than anybody else. You know, look how many Josh Allen had to throw for them to even question what kind of a QB this guy is. And I think it's interesting because Tyreek Hill had mentioned this today. He was watching Jet Up, even though I don't think Greeny was on today. So Tyreek Hill tweets, "I'm currently watching these guys talk on Get Up. Tua may be the most underrated quarterback in the league, and it's sad," with a emoji. I don't know what you would call that, like crazy swirly eyes. I don't know what that is, but his point is, I think, is sound. I do think that Tua is still looked upon as, like, you know, people are not believing in him. You had this, you know, this Christopher Mad Dog Russo the other day who doesn't believe in the Dolphins, and he's like, you know, furious that Tyreek Hill has the gall to say that this Dolphins team is better than the team he won a Super Bowl with in Kansas City. And I think that it's hilarious that Tyreek Hill has gotten more flack for believing. His great crime is believing in his team. And I always find that hilarious, where the outside pundits will be sitting here, as the great Tony Fiorentino calls them, the pseudo experts will sit here and like laugh at Tyreek Hill because they say, well, he doesn't have credibility because he's on the Dolphins. And I would say, who in this conversation would have more credibility than Tyreek Hill? He's been in both situations, and they did the same thing last year when he was talking about Tua's accuracy, and people were freaking out. And he was sitting here, and he was like, I said what I said. I stand on what I say. Why is everybody so mad that I have the audacity to say my quarterback is good and maybe as accurate as Patrick Mahomes? Look, we all know Patrick Mahomes is the best right now. I acknowledge that. We all acknowledge it. This dude is awesome. Who doesn't think Patrick Mahomes is awesome? You know, you see what he's dealing with his weapons and everything that he's got. Yeah, I get it, dude. You want to sit here and you feel like you're almost insulting the game. How could you put anybody in the class of Patrick Mahomes? And then, but like, let's be real about it, dude. Tua and Tyreek Hill as a duo, his most receiving yards are with Tua, and that was with Tua even getting hurt last year for certain games. Now he's on a record mother bleeping pace. You don't even know what that Dolphins team could have done last year if they would have ended up having Tua healthy from concussions. The only thing that was keeping him out of that playoff race last year was the health of his head. And all the preparation, all the work that he's done, he comes back this year. He's still slinging the football, one of the best offenses in football. And you still have these people who are like, not sure. I'm just, why? Like, what is the reason for it? And I think that's what Tyreek is probably. Guys, like, we're still doing the underrated thing. Like, we're still doubting this guy because, like, okay, you wanted to. I even acknowledged, like, coming into the year, like, yeah, durability is a thing. We need to know that he can get through a season. But now that we're sitting here and we're halfway through the year and, you know, things have been, you know, going well and he has, you know, taken his hits and bounced back just fine and all of that stuff. I had a damn chunk out of his arm missing this past week against the Jets. I'm just sitting here and I'm trying to think, like, what are the big mysteries that people are still trying to hold over the guy? Because, you know, you tune in today. I was looking at this on ESPN, right? And they had top 5 candidates for MVP. And I'm kind of torn on this because I don't want to disparage 2 players that I root for, because Tyreek Hill is having an historically great season and maybe does deserve more MVP talk than he's getting. But it sucks that if you talk up his MVP candidacy, it feels like you're taking a shot at the quarterback because he's buoying Tua. And all these guys have, you know, guys that are their go-to guys that put him this way, whether it be Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Slim Reaper, or you have Travis Kelce being the lone target, CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott, like that hasn't made a difference, and Lamar Jackson, like adding extra weapons like Zay Flowers and OBJ to him, like that hasn't made a difference for him this year. So these were their top 4 candidates, and then you get to number 5, and it's not Tua. And it's Tyreek Hill. And first of all, it's crazy on a couple levels because, like, odds-wise, he's plus 5,000, like 50-1 to win the MVP. And he probably should be closer than that, but it's just wild that we're looking upon Tua as that he's still a guy who is getting the benefit of Tyreek Hill and that he would be nothing without Tyreek Hill. But if you asked 100 Dolphin fans this week, hey, you have to not be without one for a significant football game. Do you want to lose your star receiver or your star quarterback? Everybody is going to say, I will sit without the star receiver and take my chances with the QB and see what he can do. Thankfully for the Dolphins, they don't have to make that choice. It's kind of like the thing where everybody says, well, Mike McDaniel's system, lifts Tua up. He's a system quarterback. Yeah, well, who cares? They all work together. I don't really understand. What is your argument there? That one guy knows how to get the best out of him and the other one was a dope who didn't know how to? You know, it's like, Patrick Mahomes, if he were to go to a different coach or if he would have had a different coach, would he have been this good? I don't know. Maybe he would have been. Maybe that he would have been fantastic anywhere, but isn't landing with Andy Reid a pretty great thing, and landing with all the weapons that he did have initially a pretty great thing for him? Seems like it would have been. So it's just silly. It is funny that, like, Tua has a bad 60 seconds and it becomes these things where it's like we still have to overanalyze all of this stuff. I always found it like weird him in his weekly press conference. There was a lot of asking of, the way you deal with interceptions and how Mike actually. It's like, yeah, we've kind of been there, done that with him. He's a quarterback with a lot of years under his belt. He knows how to turn the page off of interceptions and move on. And the coach clearly believes in him and doesn't want to dwell on it. But I do think, man, he in my eyes has had some moments in these games where, like, yeah, if he could have done in that Chiefs game, I said, like, him and Tyreek Hill bear the responsibility of the game. They're the stars, and they didn't come through with some big situations, with Tyreek not taking care of the football and Tua not taking care of the football. Even if you could also put it on Connor Williams throwing a snap like Randy Johnson or Cedric Wilson going the wrong way, like, yeah, Tua was not able to overcome. In that Eagles game where, you know, he throws the late interception, was chicanery from the officials? Yeah, probably. But, you know, there were also opportunities for him that he didn't come through. And in these games where it's like, would they have put up a lot more points if he had a cleaner game against it? Yeah, probably would have. But also, They have the record they are a lot in reason because of him. And it's almost just always looked upon. They're looking for the quickest exit to get to, oh, they're doing this in spite of him. And that's really stupid. So this MVP thing is going to be interesting because I do wonder once we get to, if Tyreek Hill does get to a point where he's really threatening that record and gets over 2,000, which is just incredible. I wonder if that'll almost even split on the two of them too, because you have legitimately two MVP candidates, but it usually is a quarterback award. But for some reason, Tua is the only guy who looks like he's the only guy out of these top 5 QB candidates that everybody looks at and is like, nah, you're getting a little bit too much from your wide receiver. It's like, what? It's a strange place to put. As Tyreek Hill said, it's sad to see. It's sad to see we're still here with him.